Okay, today I'm going to be installing a single door on an 8x12 TR700 building. First thing we're going to do is cut out the 2x4 base plate before we install the threshold. And I wanted to show you a couple things I did here prior to starting the video. I went ahead and I painted around the trim where the door handle is going to go, and I also painted these edges on all the surrounding door trim. That way it's dry when we put it on the building. So it's very important to paint those edges. It really gives the finished product a great look. So I'm going to go ahead and get the threshold installed next. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you is when you're installing this threshold, it's very important that you keep this outside edge of the sill nosing flush with the outside of your framing. Reason being is if the threshold is pushed all the way in and it's set in off the framing, when the door is closed, you're actually going to see daylight through here because the door actually closes against the framing. So you want to make sure your edge is nice and flush. So what I always do is just take any kind of straight edge. I like to use a speed square, set it on the threshold and the framing, and then just pull it out until you have a nice tight seam here. And then what I'll go ahead and do is I'll put my first screw in, and then I'll go to the other side and do the same thing, and then I'll put my last two screws in. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so now that our threshold's in, next thing we're going to do is take a 3/4 inch spacer, and we're going to set it on top of the sill nosing. You got to have a 3/4 inch reveal underneath the door between the top of the sill nosing and the bottom of the door steel. So we're just going to set this piece of 3/4 inch plywood on top, and then our door is actually going to sit on top of that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is install our door handle. So we're going to take the front half of the door handle, and we're just going to set it in. And then what we're going to do is we want to make sure that the barrel is centered in the hole from left to right and up and down. You can see there's wiggle room either way. So we want to make sure we get it centered. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to pre-drill the two holes, and then we're going to put the screws in. And one thing I wanted to show you guys is this right here is a self-centering hinge bit. It's spring loaded, so this front section will actually fit inside of the hole, and when you push it in, the drill bit comes out and it just makes a little pilot hole in the trim. This is a really valuable little tool to have. This will come in handy when we go to screw the hinges in too. You can pick these up at Harbor Freight, you can get them on Amazon, and I'm pretty sure Lowe's and Home Depot have them as well. But you definitely want to get one of these. It'll make installing the door a lot easier. Okay, so I got it centered. I got the barrel centered in the hole. I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill my first hole here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put that screw in. So you want to put the top one in first. I'll show you why in a second. Okay. All right, next thing you're going to do is take the handle and turn it upside down. And then you want to make sure that the housing of the door handle is basically square with your trim, which is good right there. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to pre-drill my bottom hole. That's it. Put the other screw in. And then turn the handle down. So as you see, the screws went in real easy. So you want to make sure your handle spins freely. And I'm just checking the backside to make sure that it's not rubbing up against the hole at all, so it's good. So now we're going to put the backside of the handle on. Okay, so now we're going to put on the backside of the door handle. So we're just going to slip that right over the barrel. And we want to make sure that the edge of our assembly is flush with the edge of the plywood and the door steel, which it is right there. So what I'm going to do, just like I did on the front side, I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill my first hole. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my first screw in. And I'm going to do that with each one of these. Okay, just wanted to show you real quick, very important. You'll see there's 4 spaces for screws. You got to make sure you put a screw in each one of those spots, very important. The other thing I wanted to show you, once you have it all fastened in place, you want to test it out by turning the handle and letting it go. You want to make sure that it's not sticking. Like if you tried to let it go and it's stuck here, that means that the inside barrel is probably rubbing up against the steel, and you're gonna have to adjust it. But yeah, as you can see, that's what you want. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna install our striker plate on the door jamb, but we need a couple of measurements first. So the first thing I'm gonna do is measure from the bottom of the door steel to the midpoint of this door latch, which is, in this case, it's 35 3/8. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take this 3/4 inch shim and just slide it over here for right now, because the door steel is going to sit on top of the 3/4 inch shim. So I'm just going to measure up 35 3/8, and I'm just going to put a horizontal line on here. And that's going to be the center. That's going to get me centered up and down with my latch. But now I need to see how far back I need to set the latch. So what I'm going to do real quick, show you this other measurement we need. We're going to measure from the back side of this door panel to the back side of the latch, which is 2 inches. In my experience, you're going to see this is pretty much always going to be 2 inches, but you always want to measure it to be sure. And then what we're going to do with that measurement is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take that measurement. I'm going to measure from the outside edge, but I don't want to make it exactly 2 inches because that's going to be too tight. The rule of thumb is they want you to leave a 1/4 inch of play between the back side of the latch and the striker plate. So if I got 2 inches there, I'm going to go ahead and mark 1 3/4 inches here. Okay, so I'm going to make 2 small marks at 1 3/4 inches, and then we're going to take the latch. Now the latch has to go on this way. Don't make the mistake of putting it backwards. It's got to go like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my center mark this way to get the height right. And then I'm going to line up this back edge right on my marks. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hinge bit, pre-drill 2 holes, and put 2 screws in. Okay, just wanted to show you real quick what that looks like. So you can see I got my center mark here, and I got my 2 marks back here at 1 3/4 inches. Everything's lined up. I pre-drilled and put the screws in. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, now that I got the striker plate in and the door handle assembled, I'm going to pick the door up and set it in place. Then I'm just going to go ahead and close the door. And as you see, the door stays in place. because the latch is on. And now we're going to do is go ahead and gauge our trim and put our trim on next. Okay, so one thing I wanted to show you, once we set our door in place, what you want to do is keep the bottom in and lean the top out. And what we're going to do is make sure the edge, the front edge of this latch is 1/8 of an inch away from our door jamb. So if you see right there, it's hitting on the jamb. That's what we don't want. We want to keep about 1/8 of an inch space, which we have right about there. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and close the door and leave it in place. Now we know our door is exactly where it needs to be. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to gauge our trim and nail our trim on next. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is install our surrounding trim around the door. So what you're going to want to do is take a carpenter's pencil, which is the exact thickness we need for our reveal between the door trim and the surrounding trim. What you're going to do is set your pencil on top of the door, then you're going to take your side piece of trim, and you want the top of this piece of trim to be flush with the top of your pencil. Once you have it flush, then you're going to take your pencil and put it in between, and make sure you got a pencil width in between and that it's flush at the top. Once you have it, you're going to go ahead and shoot one nail in. Then what you're going to do is come down to the center and use your pencil as a gauge, pull your trim over till you got your spacing, shoot a nail, and then we're going to do the same thing at the bottom. So that piece is in. We got to finish nailing it, but we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to gauge it, put that in, and then we'll put our top piece of trim in. Okay, I got all my trim nailed on, and I wound up taking the door out of the opening. I want to show you why here in just a second. But first thing I wanted to do is show you the nail pattern on the trim. So you want to make sure you have 2 nails at the bottom, and then you have a stagger pattern 8 inches apart going up your trim. Same thing on the top, 2 nails on the ends. And then what I like to do on the top is you use the grooves in your siding, which are 8 inches apart, and I go high, low, and it gives you a nice looking pattern all the way across. So, and then on your sides here, if you look inside, you've only got 3 inches of space to hit when you're nailing your trim on. So what you want to do is basically you're going to stagger your nails, but when you come to the outside, you don't want to nail too close to the outside, otherwise you'll have a nail shown on the inside. So you're going to nail to the inside and then come just a little bit past the center and just angle your nail back a little bit, and that way you won't have, as you can see, there's no nails shining through on the inside. That's what you want. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now, I'm going to go ahead and put my second coat of paint on the face, and then I'll put my door back in and we'll get the hinges screwed on. Okay, so now that I got my door back in place, I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill the holes for the hinges with my hinge bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start at the top, get my pencil width in between, and I'm just going to drill one quick hole. Then I'm going to come to the center and do the same thing. Make sure I got my pencil width. And then I'll do the same thing at the bottom. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out my bit. I'm going to put a screw in each one of the hinges. And once I do that, I'll go back through and pre-drill the rest of the holes and put the rest of the screws in. Okay, so I got one screw in each hinge. I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill the rest. All right, now I'm going to put the rest of the screws in. There, all the screws are in. You'll notice how quick and easy they went in, being that the holes are all pre-drilled. So that's pretty much it. Our door's installed. We're done. Okay, last thing I wanted to show you on this door. Always want to make sure that you put a bead of caulking above the trim, above the door. Make sure you get some down in the grooves of the siding. That's to help make sure that there's no leaks in the door. So that's pretty much it for the single door install. Pretty easy. Just make sure it shuts good. Beautiful. There's your single door install. If you guys got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.